welcome to this week's episode of the Inclusive Networker Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Ramona, and who are we calling into conversation today? Well, it's Maisha Dible. I am so very excited to have Maisha as my guest, and so let me tell you just a little bit about her. This is an amazing intro. She is a former collegiate athlete turned corporate wonder who found her voice in network marketing by becoming the first top Black leader of the company. So Maisha, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today on the Inclusive Networker.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, the first question that I ask my guests, and I'm going to ask you, is what is your lens?
I love that little tiny intro because it's just a glimpse of what my lens is. I am a small town Kansas girl who have never left Kansas for whatever reason. I mean, I am here. But one of the things that I always love to share in my story that can sometimes relate to people, especially those who are entrepreneurs, is I didn't know what I wanted to be. I went to college. I got a degree in interior design. And it's so funny when you're playing sports and it's been your whole life. Like I remember from the age 5 to, 20 plus, because I played a little bit of basketball after college. And once that was done, it was like, who am I? What am I going to do? And so I tried my hats in all these different professions, and I'd hoped for the best. And, bless my husband and his patience, because he stuck with me as I was trying to find my voice. And I truly was just looking for something that made me feel like I had a purpose, besides being a mom and being a wife and being a great friend and a sister and all those things. I couldn't find who I was. And so network marketing, as crazy as it may seem, kind of helped me find my voice again. So that's my lens.
I love that, Maisha, and I love it because I have been very, very much focused on voice, and we didn't talk about this, and so it is so funny that you say this, because I realize that when I'm trying to talk to people about inclusion and diversity, equity, inclusion, and then I'm trying to tell them to speak up, say something, I'm realizing that it's very hard for people to do that if they don't know what their own voice is. So how do you have a voice for someone else when you don't even know what your voice is, right? Wow. So let's go here for a minute, because I just think this is so good. Okay. So as you were thinking about, or as you were going through the process of finding your voice, how did network marketing really help you to do that? What are some of the things that you went through, or the process of network marketing? How did it help you find your voice?
So it's funny is because, you meet so many different walks of life in this profession. And what I found, the most common ground was we were all needing something, whether it was extra income, time freedom, whatever. We were all looking for something. And so for myself, I found that I wasn't alone. I found that I could be a part of a team because, again, former athlete, I wanted to be a part of a team. That's just my jam. And so I realized that I could offer so much more for so many people. I didn't realize what that was at the very beginning of my career, but I realized later on in my career that I had so much ability to listen and speak for so many who maybe weren't in that place yet. They hadn't found their voice yet. So I could be that voice for them and kind of pave the way for so many others to feel comfortable in their own skin and, walk the walk and truly grow within, this industry. And it wasn't even about business. It was growing as a human and learning that anybody can do something and be successful once they do truly find their voice.
Yes. And so As you're helping people to find their voice, what are some of the things that you've noticed? Because we're on the Inclusive Networker podcast, right? I'm really concerned about inclusion and how do we ensure that that is happening in our industry in network marketing. And so a lot of times when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we realize that people don't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel like they belong, right?
Mhm.
In the industry, in their particular company. And so what are some of the things that you do to help people find that voice?
It kind of goes back to a little kindergarten, right? Where we are learning about each other and all we care about is making friends, right? I mean, that is truly when it boils down to it. We didn't care what anyone looked like, talked like, dressed. We just wanted friends. And I found when I went back to kind of that elementary mindset of who are you as a person and how can I help you achieve whatever goal it is that you're looking to achieve, I found so much more success in that way. One, I'm building a relationship. I'm building a rapport with somebody, and they're not just a number or a face or even a name. They are truly somebody whom I care about and I want to see them succeed. And I think when people come from that mindset or from that place, they're going to find so much more success. And so I think that's what's truly helped me change and kind of project to the top of that company because I was really focused on helping people find their voice and find out who they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so as we think about that and we think about leaders in network marketing, and I think it's no secret when we look around at the top of network marketing companies, we don't see a lot of BIPOC women, Black women, people of color, whatever is your preferred term.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what are some of the issues that you've seen as it relates to diversity in network marketing?
I mean, I think it's just that not seeing somebody who reflects who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be for various different reasons. The negative mindsets that typically happen, especially for me. I remember growing up and direct sales or the knocking on the doors, that type of thing was like, don't you answer the door, type of mindset. And so I think sometimes culturally how people are brought up can impact that. Secondly, when you don't see someone who reflects what you look like or who you are, then you feel like it's not for you. And so it's so important for people to, have the mindset that they want to get to the top so that others can see that you can do this too. And that was what my goal was. As soon as I recognized that there wasn't anyone, and I mean nobody, who looked like me, at the top, I said, I've got to change this. And I have to let other women, in my case, Black women, see themselves being successful in this industry. Because like you said, there's very little.
So, Maisha, I really am interested in why. Why are we thinking? I know that we talk about, people needing to work hard, and we talk about the fact that, yes, you've got to do what you need to do to run a business, right? But it seems that there aren't more people of color or women of color, mostly in network marketing, getting to the top of the company. So I feel like there's more than just not working hard enough. So tell me, what is your take on what's going on with women of color not getting to the top of these companies?
That's a great question. And one of the things that I sit back and I really reflect and think, in my journey, what was some of the things that I have seen or experienced that I was like, oh gosh, here's this kind of alert. Looking at a corporation. And one, it's looking at that particular, corporate office, if you will. Is it diverse? That would be my first question, because if it's not, then are you going to have a voice there that's going to see that, hey, we got to make sure we're putting out the right marketing. We got to make sure we're putting out the right products that's going to be inclusive. We got to make sure that we're highlighting all types of leaders versus just one. And if those things aren't kind of meeting up, that's going to be a huge hill to climb from the very beginning. And so I found even reaching, the top, that I was being this voice solely where others can be an ally who don't look like me and make sure that is happening as well. So I think it can go both ways. How can we be allies for each other when we don't see a, nationality being represented and heard? What can we do to make sure that that's happening? That is definitely marketing, because that's easy. I mean, if you have a company, you can look out at the field and say, we can pick these people to, represent that products. If it doesn't work for all, are you being inclusive? And I think that is something that companies really have to stop and ask themselves that tough question. Because when it boils down to it, that almighty dollar can bite you if you aren't being willing to be inclusive and being mindful of what you're putting out there. Because what you put out there it's a message that this is who we are, this is who we represent, and this is who we want to see be successful. And if that's not inclusive, that's going to be really tough for someone who looks like myself to get to the top, because they don't have something to sell. Right. I think, to products that are being offered to people, and if I can't use that product, for whatever reason, how is that? And I hate to always, because I tell my kids life isn't fair, but how is that fair? Right. To entrepreneurs who are trying to climb the same hill, but yet we're getting boulders thrown down at us, and other people aren't. So you've got to be mindful. And I think that sometimes has been a huge, roadblock for, Black entrepreneurs, in my case, to be successful, because they aren't given, the same equal playing field. How about that?
Yeah. And I found it so interesting that you talked about the almighty dollar, because I've been doing research and looking at the buying power of Black communities, Hispanic, Asian, like the buying power has just skyrocketed from the 90s up until 2020, when I read the last report. That buying power is so huge. And when you think about networking and going out into communities, network marketing companies have to wake up. You are losing so much money by saying, oh, it doesn't matter, because all they're focused on is there may be just a couple of consultants right now, and they're like, okay, they're not doing much, but I'm not going to worry about it. But this bigger picture of buying power is totally being lost on a lot of these companies. And so I think it's so important for us to really look beyond and look at where the world is going, because the demographics of the world are changing. The way that the world works and what consumers demand is changing. And so that is super important for not only network marketing companies, but people who lead their own network marketing teams as independent consultants, to start to think about, how am I incorporating diversity and inclusivity in everything that I do? Because I've got to start building this diverse team. One, if I'm going to retain people, and if I'm going to just recruit them, but mostly retain, because that's how we get to the top of the company, right? So, I love that point. I think it's so important.
Can I make sure too that we make a point of, for leaders, as you're growing this diverse team, you have to do more than just saying, I want a diverse team.
Oh,
and it has to look different than finding somebody who looks like the demographic you're trying to grow and say, hey, can you help me?
Absolutely.
That doesn't work. And then, as well as what you're putting out there as a leader. If you're hosting an event, you're wanting to showcase your company, your products, and all those things, but the images that you're putting out there isn't diverse, you are already pigeon-toeing yourself from growing that diverse and inclusive team or group or company. And so I think that sometimes we think, oh, we get so excited and we got this top leader coming to talk and this top leader coming to talk, but they look the same. You have already hurt yourself from growing, from, that diverse and inclusivity. Also think about the locations of where you're hosting stuff. I know
Absolutely.
cities are different and big and all those things, and maybe you want to grow your backyard. This is also that part of growth. Get out of your backyard. Go to places that you've never been before. Learn different cultures and try different things, because that's where people are going to be like, "Who is this, lady or man that's over here? What are they talking about? I want to,
Mhm.
man, they're over here growing this. I want to learn more about this, right?"
Yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
it's important as leaders that we recognize, if we truly want to be allies and we truly want to grow a diverse and inclusive team, we have to start walking the walk, and we can't pass the buck to somebody because they fit the description. I
Mm.
have an example of this happening to me numerous times. Hey, I have a Black prospect. Could you talk
Mhm.
to said Black prospect? I have
Yeah.
nothing in common. That person was a nurse. I'm an
Yeah.
art major. I wish I knew more. The only
Mhm.
thing that was in common was that we were both Black. Yes,
Mhm.
I can talk to her as my, sister, but she's going to want to talk to somebody who has the same background as her. How can she work said business alongside her nursing career like another nurse?
Mhm.
So you have to be willing to think outside of the box and not just think of the what's in front of you. So
Yeah. And it puts the burden. And so this brought up another thought in my mind. So it puts the burden on your women of color to build your diverse team if you're not taking the initiative to learn and to grow yourself. And so that's another weight and another burden that's taking them away from doing the work that they need to do to build their systems, to build their consistency, because they're taking a lot of time out to go to these other teams and help them to talk to the great Black girls that came along the way. And right. And so this is something that needs to be addressed, because I've seen this across so many companies. It is not one company. I did it all the time. My colleagues in my company did it all the time. So many people have said the same thing, and it's not wrong to ask for help or to ask someone to meet another Black woman. No, we're not saying that. But the burden gets very heavy when other people aren't willing to do the work, right? And so I think that that's something that's an extremely important point. I'm glad you said that, to bring that out, because I've heard it so much in so many different companies.
yeah, I always like to tell people, even if they don't have kiddos, um, could you hire a nanny and somebody to come live in your house and take care of your kiddos? Yes. If you have the money to be able to afford to do that, absolutely. But if you don't you want to raise your kids and learn the ins and outs of that said child, and
Mm-hmm.
really find out what type of personality and human being this person is going to be? If you don't take the time to build that yourself, you're never going to know. And so
Mm-hmm.
when someone whose child is maybe has been raised by somebody else, that person is going to be the person that knows them. And think about the person you're asking them to go talk to. They're going to have more of a relationship with me because I took the time to have this conversation instead of being passed. So don't pass the buck, I guess is what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
say. Get to know that person, find out about them, be authentic and be true.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that kindergartner. Who are you as a person? I'm wanting more friends. I want you to be my friend, and
Mm-hmm.
your business will skyrocket if you truly take that approach.
Love that. Drop the mic. As we think about this idea of building teams, right? We're trying to build these diverse teams now, and we're thinking about how we're giving people a voice, and they don't see people at the top, right? And so, what are some of the things that you did to really help to build your team? So I'm asking this question because there's lots of people with small teams. They want to build a more diverse team. They want to grow. They want to get to the top of the company, and you have done that. And so, tell us a little bit more about how do you grow in a diverse and inclusive team? What are some steps that people would take?
So I think it's important for you to get out of your own comfort zone. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the one things that I told myself from the very beginning is there's only one of me. And the way that I can truly grow in this is finding multiples and multiples and multiples of different people from different backgrounds and
Mm-hmm.
different education, all those things, because that's what makes this world go round. If my team doesn't look like what the world represents, I'm missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really important to me. So how I did that was I joined things, different groups on social media. I found and got to know different people within my community.
Mm-hmm.
I would meet, for instance, someone in my neighborhood who was a different age group, different nationality than myself, and got to know them and got involved in things that I normally wouldn't get involved. It's so easy for us to stay in our box or our bubble because that's what's comfortable and hope
Mm-hmm.
and pray, right? I always tell people, don't
Yeah.
live on the hope mentality. I hope I can get to the top. You got to do the actions to actually get there.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
means popping that bubble and doing things that you normally wouldn't do and meeting people that you wouldn't normally meet. So I truly prided myself on doing that. It's hard. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can get uncomfortable, but man, it was fun and it is fun because I'm constantly meeting people who knows people who knows people. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what makes network marketing go round. Because if I only did just my network, I would run dry pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so the what's an example of some types of things that you did? Because I think people get stuck right here. They're like, well, what do I need to do? What types of organizations? Like, what's some concrete examples that you can give people of the things that you did to really start to just diversify your network?
Sure. So I found like a mom's group. So if they're a mom,
Mm-hmm.
that's an easy one where they were meeting and having coffee and just talking about mom stuff. That was one.
Mm-hmm.
I told you about my love for sports, but outside of that, I found sports that I didn't play. I wanted to find out if you're a collegiate athlete of some sort, there's a whole slew of us. And so I got
Mm-hmm.
to learn and connect with people who
Yeah.
went to college and then now we don't have our sport. So now what? And that was a fun, way for me to meet people outside of, my love for, basketball or track.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is in the pharmaceutical industry, and that's a whole slew of phenomenal people. And so I got to meet, people throughout, his career in doing that. That was something completely science. Oh my gosh, no. You give me art, yes. So that was out of my comfort zone. I mean, listening to these people, they are so intelligent and they're talking about things I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea, but I got to learn and meet so many people that way. Um, School with my kids and their things. That's another. I mean, parents are very protective of their kids. And
Mm-hmm.
what I think I love the most about that is we all have different ways of how we raise our kids. And so getting to, know some of these parents that my kids were going to school with, that was a whole nother thing. I would much rather stay at home and be in my sweats and, got my coffee and hanging out.
Right.
I made a conscious, decision. I was going to go out and step out of my comfort zone and join or meet up, if you will, working out, going to a
Mm-hmm.
new gym that I had no idea what I was going to do, but I was going to go in there and think, you know what, here we go. I ran a marathon, my first and last marathon. That's a whole nother group of people. I hated running. Although I did track, I was a hurdler, so I wanted to be done
Mm-hmm.
as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Marathon, just like our businesses, it's a marathon. And so that's a whole nother group of people completely out of my comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
that I was meeting. So there are some examples of things where I personally did that if you think to some of the things that interest you and then just branch out a little bit. If
Mm-hmm.
it is, crocheting, okay, maybe there's another type of hands-on type craft that isn't crocheting that you can meet with. If
Mm-hmm.
it is a book club, maybe, there's all kinds of things that you can do, a person can do to go out and meet new people.
Yeah, I love that. And that goes back to exactly how we started the conversation, that it broadens your lens and it also gives you the voice, right? Because you're starting to learn, how do I interact with other people that don't look like me or think like me or act like me, right? And it just gives you so much more to go on than just your narrow lens that we all often start this process with. And so I love that, love that. And so tell us, Maisha, how do we connect with you? How do we, make sure that we stay in touch with you? What's your next big project? What do we do to make sure that we stay plugged in with Maisha?
Yes. Okay. So my main contact is Instagram. You can find me at My Dible. I keep it pretty simple. You're gonna find so much humor, I hope, on my page. But I also love to, dive in there with topics just like this because it is important and it's near and dear to my heart that people feel included, no matter what career path they choose. Um, so that you can find me on TikTok as well, which is My Dible, and that's going to be another fun side of me because I think we all have that, right? We have our
Absolutely.
professional-ish side and then we have the fun side. So those are the two things. My next project is truly, piggybacking with you, doctor, and helping people understand that there's always a place for them to shine. They just have to be willing to step outside and go for it. So that was always going to be my love project.
I love that. Love that. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening to this episode of the Inclusive Networker podcast. Thank you to my fabulous guest, Maisha Dible. You will find her information in the show notes, and we will see you on the next episode of the Inclusive Networker. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.